I was going to announce that I have mastered Mage Knight. And then I thought that's a little bit crazy because I'm still losing a lot of games. But I at least have an idea of what's going on. And I can say with confidence, with Fritz swagger, that I've got like 90% of the rules down. I have been playing in the Fritz cave. I have 2 tables set up. I have been drilling Mage Knight, and I have been drilling Magic Realm. Just literally playing nonstop. Not only having a great time, a blast of a time playing both solo, and we're going to get to Magic Realm, but also really trying to learn the rules, really trying to learn the narrative, because these 2 games have captured that narrative. They've captured that imagination. They are very complex. I want to bring them to the gaming club. I want to play them with a bunch of friends that I think will really, really enjoy them from that perspective. And I need to at least have an idea of the rules flow. I need to have an idea sort of what's going on there, simply so that maybe we can make it through a game or understand the flow. My take on Mage Knight right now, there's a lot of elements going on in the game. And what I notice with most board games, they'll have a primary mechanic, a primary system. You know, if I look at something like Dark Souls, which, not in a bad way, I mean, I like Dark Souls, that's obvious. It's a very simplistic game. You have action dice that you have to roll. You have to get successes. You compare that against the defense value. You roll defense dice. It's basically roll and compare, and there's ways to modify that with gear and stuff. That is the core mechanic, whether it's close combat or magic or assault. So every game is going to have this core mechanic. And then they'll add on a couple of mechanics, you know, where we're kind of exploring the Mage Knight DNA makeup. Then they tend to add on sub-mechanics to kind of flesh out the main narrative or add a little tactical play in there. Some games, they throw everything at you. Some games are like, I don't really know what this is going to be, but I want it to be, you know, challenging and complex. So I'm going to throw in lots of different aspects of the game and see just, it's going to be a mishmash of whatever rules on there. At first glance, that's how Mage Knight appears. You've got a deck builder. You've got an exploration game. You've got monsters that don't only attack and defend, but have dozens and dozens of specialized conditions, ranging from the usual, you know, poison or ice and fire to stuff like paralysis, stuff like getting turned to stone on there, fighting a Medusa. You've got activation in terms of modification, who's going to act first or second every single turn. So it's not like just go around the table, fixed activation. You've got dice to generate power abilities on there and apply them. I mean, there's a lot. You've got followers. You've got artifacts. I mean, it's just, you look at it and you're like, let's take every kind of idea and every theme of fantasy board gaming and just mash it into one and call it Mage Knight. That was the perception. And that was a little bit my perception, because trying to pull these pieces together is challenging. But what I noticed now being, I have it written down. I do keep track of my playthroughs. I'm about 28 games in. And admittedly, most of them were failures. I ran out of time. I wasn't able to crack those cities. Part of it, admittedly, was when you sit down and play a new game, you want to encounter everything. So I'm going through, I'm like, oh, ruins. Let's go in there. Let's jump in there. Oh, a castle. Let's attack and find out what's there. Oh, monster pit. Let's attack and go in there. I'm admittedly wasting time and not playing the most optimal, but I'm literally exploring everything. But that's part of the learning curve, of course, from that perspective. What I've noticed with Mage Knight, it's the best of both worlds. And it took me by surprise because by my nature, if you've been following some of my board gaming podcasts, I like dice. I like dice. 25% of you listening out there where you're like, that's cringeworthy. Dice are the worst. You can't control them. It's completely random on luck on there. You put up a great battle plan. You've laid things out for turns and turns. It comes down to a single dice roll. You fail. Like, what? You just wasted 2 hours real time of your life on there. Yes, admittedly, but perhaps it's the chaotic neutral in me. I love rolling dice. I love the possibility of, look, you need this insane combination. Give me the dice. You know, I'll sit down with Solo and we'll play a game of cards and see what we can do, see what I can win on there. So I love dice from that perspective. But I know they have their limitations, and in modern board game design, which I would say Mage Knight was kind of the first in that direction. The most recent in that direction, of course, Gloomhaven. I love Gloomy out there. Modern board game design, no dice whatsoever in it, although you have cards to modify. One could say there's a little bit of random in there. But from that perspective, my first approach to Mage Knight was like, I don't know if Fritz is going to like this, because where's the dice? I've got these mana dice. I don't know. We're going to roll them and like get some powers, but where's my D6s? Where's my D8s? Where's my custom dice on there? It starts out with deck building. And what I found really unique was, okay, I have my core group of action cards. That's going to give me complete control, a little bit of random based on what I draw, but there's ways to draw more cards, either through an ability for each Mage Knight or the day counter or night counter. You can draw some additional cards, so we can modify it. But at least when I play a card, I know what I can get. Now we start to see the genius of Mage Knight, where it takes a concept and breaks it out into a massive unfolding decision tree. So I have my card. 3 ways I can play it. I can play the top way. I can play the bottom one if I activate with a crystal or mana, or I can turn it sideways, tap it, and get 1 point for something. I can apply 1 point to something on there. 3 ways out of 1 use on there. That was kind of intriguing on there. I found myself kind of liking the puzzle. So we have ways to control our character but infinitely grow. Then we have the random aspect of exploration. And what I really enjoyed was this pulls in 2 types of exploration. Physical tile flipping, and we see that in a lot of games. You know, draw a random tile, flip it over. That's where you go. Even when you play through the game a lot and you've seen most of the tiles just modified by mission, modified by placement, modified by players, it's going to allow a lot of possibilities. And then on each tile, the chance for a mage tower, a keep, a castle, a monster den, a mine, ruins, mazes, whatever it's going to be on there. There's action within the action. So it's not just the discovery. It's another layer of, okay, we're going in and we're going to see what's there on the actual tile. Then you've got to make decisions. Are you going to run in there and get the artifact? Are you going to try and do different things? Other activations on there, we have another layer of powers in terms of units, henchmen, whatever we want to call them, that you can hire. You spend influence to hire them. We have artifacts that are going to boost your Mage Knight's power. So there's a lot of these kind of skills within skills within skills. And I think Mage Knight, looking at it objectively, what it really does well, if I put the theme aside, absolutely the theme is fantastic. The exploration is fantastic. I understand why this is people that play their top 5 game is within this list. And I wholeheartedly agree on that, especially with the Ultimate Edition being out. I think it gives you enough control of your character, enough choices that you own the choices. You figure out the cards you want to play. You figure out you want your Mage Knight to develop by trying to load up on artifacts or load up on magic or a little bit of everything. You pick the path, and then it does interject random, but controllable random, based on the source dice that you roll, based on the cards as they unfold from your hand, based on, you have this great plan laid out, but you have to pay attention whether it's the dummy deck or the other players there. How are they expending their cards? Because you don't want the round to end and you've got a full hand of cards because you were getting ready for some awesome combo and you can't pull it off and now it's gone. There's a lot of what-if randomness. It's just not in your face with blatant rolling D6s and seeing what happens. I found that to be very, very intriguing. That's my take on the narrative. That's my take on the DNA for Mage Knight. Absolutely. And if anything, why didn't I get involved sooner? playing Mage Knight. I mean, it literally sat on my shelf for a while, and every time I would look at it, it would taunt me, because when I first tried to approach it, it was just like, let's take all these great gaming concepts and just smash them together, and I was not able to see, admittedly, how they overlaid. It did take significant investment in there. It did take watching a lot of YouTube videos, and the only thing I could easily compare it to, it's like playing D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, in that if you want to sit down and play D&D as a DM, Dungeon Master, as a player, you have to sit down and like really devote time to reading through the rule books, reading through the player's handbook, figuring out how these things mash together, figuring out how these things interact, even with a tutorial. And the tutorial, looking back, it's not as bad for Mage Knight on there. It does, I guess, about as good as it's going to do. With that, Mage Knight is not plug and play. Mage Knight is not Zombicide Invader, just pull it out and you're ready to rock and roll on there. It takes significant investment. And maybe that was just my take. I have a couple of Euros in my collection, but not a lot. So being more of a kind of Fortress America type player, Ameritrash player out there, whatever we want to call it, most of my games play fast and play kind of easy on there. They're more of an entertainment experience versus an intellectual exercise. So maybe Mage Knight caught me off guard with that. Those of you who are hardcore Euro players and hardcore kind of deck builders, you're like, Fritz, Mage Knight's baby stuff. Like, just, I don't know what you're talking about. Possibly. I think it depends on the direction and perspective that you approach it.